Today we will touch upon a few topics, why buildings are so important for all of us and for the economy more broadly for the world, what are some of the future trends we see, and how the digitalization of buildings has been going on over the decades, and how it is expected to transform in the future. And I'll introduce you to a framework which UL, in conjunction with some partners, has developed for assessing the smart capabilities and performance of buildings, and then a little bit of introduction about UL, which many of you probably already know. So we spend more than 80% of our lives inside of buildings. They're extremely important for our wellness, for our happiness, and also for helping us achieve the things that we want to do. Beyond that, buildings are very important for the economy as a whole, the global economy as a whole. The building construction industry contributes roughly 6% of the global GDP, right? So it's a big contributor. And many of you have probably heard about and read news items about a potential recession which might be coming in many parts of the world, right? And usually whenever these kind of cycles happen, governments and other institutions intervene. And one of the vectors of that intervention is always buildings. Historically, it has been a lot about sustainability and other themes, but going forward, it will be much bigger and broader beyond sustainability, and safety is going to be a critical dimension of that. Right. So buildings, every business has a mission, and the mission of that business is achieved through its workforce in the different workplaces. Like today, we are hosting the first SIBCA conference here in the UAE, in the Middle East, and we are trying to further the agenda of innovation in the space of safety. So in order for these missions to be advanced, buildings have to be, or the built environment has to be tuned to make sure that people are able to deliver what they need to contribute in the way they need to. They are also big consumers of, buildings are big consumers of energy and different kinds of utilities and natural resources that are out there. With the global focus on sustainability and other related topics, buildings become a big vector, and more attention is being paid to this space. Recently, some of you might have noticed that Jeff Bezos has announced a $10 billion investment to help address climate control and climate-related challenges with a special focus on building technologies. So more and more investment is happening in this space. More and more complexity is also coming up in this space as newer technology gets introduced. If we see that in the next 15 to 20 years, more than 2/3 of the global population is going to live in cities. And one of the ways we define cities and we look at cities is through the thousands and tens of thousands and millions of buildings that comprise, that are in those cities, right? With the billions of people who are going to live in those cities. So urbanization as a trend is going to be there for a long time, and it is only going to pick up pace. With rapid urbanization and greater growth of technology, the complexity in buildings is also increasing. And that is one area where what Mr. Ibrahim was saying about the harmonization of technology is going to become critical, because historically, if you look at it, buildings have grown in silos, right? Even though the history of buildings is more than 5,000 years old, like in the first buildings, the pyramids, and even before that, construction industry has a very long history. But the notion of modern buildings is roughly about 150 years old, when technology started getting introduced. And digitalization of buildings is something which probably started about 4 decades back. But because of network bandwidth constraints, because of other technological constraints, the buildings industry grew in silos, right? So we had fire detection systems, we had HVAC control systems, we had security systems, and we had all lighting systems and all other kinds of systems. But as technology has matured, as sensorization has increased, as digitalization has progressed further in the built environment, we are seeing convergences. And with those convergences, new capabilities have been introduced, new experiences have been enabled, and new outcomes are possible. So something which was traditionally a brick and mortar industry is now a very technologically rich industry with the thousands of sensors and millions of data points and hundreds of control actions and reactions and anticipation that we can have not only for the building systems but also for the occupants inside of those buildings. And this trend is going to continue in the future. Historically, buildings have been a little slow in adoption of technology because not only we have to care about what's possible in the future, but we have also to take care of what's been laid out there from the past. Right, but with newer technology, with newer capabilities, a lot of the transformation is becoming easier and more seamless, and we will continue to see, because of new connectivity technologies, because of the power that is given by cloud computing to us, because of the introduction of artificial intelligence and other types of automation capabilities and other immersive experiences, we will see greater adoption of technology which will allow us to create new experiences inside of the built environment and open up new possibilities. So this notion of smart buildings has been talked about for more than a decade now. But the definition of smart has been very unique to each built environment and each developer, each owner, each operator. There has been no consensus. And it has evolved over time. It has meant different things at different points in time. When Burj Khalifa in UAE was first constructed, it still is the tallest building, right? It was never thought of as that we are constructing the smartest building in the world, even though in some of our recent evaluations we found it to be one of the smartest in the world. It was the tallest, and definitely it broke a lot of technological barriers that had never been done before, right from the construction technology to how we look at the different systems which are inside of the buildings, to how those systems converge into creating seamless and unique experiences and deliver outcomes which are suited for a vertical city, right? And if we look at the famous Deloitte building, as sometimes it is called also in Lendl Hall building, or we look at Salesforce building, the Salesforce headquarters, which is a little more recent, they have meant different things and they have stood for different things. So as building owners and building operators continue to invest billions of dollars in this space, and so much of maintenance complexity, so much of technology harmonization challenges are there, we felt it is appropriate that we should introduce something which allows us to standardize. And as Thomas was mentioning, right, so UL stands for creating standards and bringing standardization in the world, right? So we partnered with Telecommunication Industries Association and a group of 60 industry experts representing various facets of the buildings industry: architects, consultants, engineers, manufacturers, service providers, and academics as well, to create a broad definition of what a smart building means and how to think of smart buildings in terms of the outcomes that it can deliver, as well as the experiences it can enable for its occupants and for various stakeholders. So the SPIRE program, which is that world's first objective and very comprehensive smart building assessment framework, it looks at 6 different dimensions. It looks at energy and power, it looks at life and property safety, it looks at sustainability, cybersecurity, health and wellness, and connectivity. Because we not only look at the capability and performance that are enabled by the different systems which have been installed in those buildings, as well as the policies that are used to guide the operation of that building, but we also look at the performance as it is observed through the various metrics, through the various KPIs, and also the operational practices that are followed. And we have conducted over 120 plus assessments around the world, including a few in the UAE, and continuing to expand more broadly in the Middle East market. We have done assessments in North America, in Asia, in Europe, in Latin America, around the world really. And now we have got a relatively rich body of experience to know that this criteria that we introduced, where UL assessors or our certified third-party assessors and auditors will come and evaluate the buildings and not only give it a rating, but also create some rich, deep insights into how to make the building better and more suited for the future. We look at these 6 dimensions that I talked about, but we not only look at them in isolation, we also look at them in terms of the connective tissue across those dimensions. For example, when we think about life and property safety, naturally we think about fire detection, fire suppression, public address systems, digital signages, and maybe possibly the integration between different building systems in order to respond to some sort of a safety event that might happen, right? How you can evacuate people efficiently and safely, how you can respond, how you can enable the first responders and the second responders, things like that. Traditionally, we have never thought about connectivity as a dimension of safety, but it's a very important one, because imagine that there is some sort of an unfortunate event, God forbid, and we are trying to evacuate people through the stairwells and take them to refuge areas, take them to safe places. But if the connectivity is not sufficient, the connectivity coverage is not adequate, then we will not be able to connect with the first responders or with other authorities. And that creates a big exposure. Right, so we find these type of new issues which are created through the convergence and implications across those multiple dimensions of buildings. Cybersecurity is another interesting one, because as we see more and more sensors and systems getting implemented in buildings, it also raises the risk profile of that building, right? And buildings have to become adaptive in responding to not only safety events or environmental requirements, but more broader socio-economic context in which they exist. Right. So we are taking this program more global, and later today we will talk about how SIBCA and UL are going to partner to promote this further as well. So through these various assessments of SPIRE, we have found many interesting things. We have definitely been able to identify operational improvement opportunities in nearly all the buildings that we have assessed so far. We have identified new areas of risks around traditional life safety, but also risks around sustainability, risks around technological improvements to be done in the future, risks around insurance, many different dimensions of risk. We are also able to validate the technology roadmap that has been implemented in the buildings and how those technology roadmaps and technology refresh programs are being kept up to date. We look at the training of people, we look at their achievement of the KPIs, and we look at the overall health and wellness of that built environment. So it has created tremendous amount of value for asset owners, for the operators, for the maintenance professionals who help keep that building current, and for the occupants of that building. And because of the tremendous value people see through the insights they get out of the SPIRE assessment, more and more corporates are adopting this program and are taking it global when they have a global operation and a global need. A little bit about UL, probably many of you are already familiar. It's a fairly old company, started 128 years back. It was set up as a safety company, and safety is still our core DNA. We are a standards development organization. We are also the world's largest testing, inspection, certification company, not only for buildings or building related products, but also any kind of consumer goods, retail environments. We do a lot for retail supply chains as well. And today, more than 2 billion products annually carry the UL mark globally. So we take our reputation, we take our independent third-party certification status very seriously, and we work hard to maintain current with what's happening out in the world, and pull the future forward for the world. In summary, really appreciate the opportunity given today and hope to continue this dialogue and discussion through the different breaks and different sessions. Buildings are an important vector, and they will continue to become more relevant and more important for our future economic growth, prosperity, and individual wellness. The digitalization of buildings and the use of technology in buildings is increasing. That increase, while it is enabling new capabilities, enabling new experiences, also creates new challenges, opens up new vectors of risk, which we together as a stakeholder community in this space have an opportunity to address and frankly an obligation to take care of for the future. And this standardized framework that we have developed from UL along with our ecosystem partners is just the first step, and we look forward to working with all of you and many of you outside, in this across this industry to help pull the future forward. Thank you very much.